The envelope arrived at precisely 7:32 local time, sliding silently through the slot in the hull of the shuttle station. Kira Voss had been sipping her bitter, barely potable coffee, watching the artificial sun trace lazy arcs across the station's observation dome, when the small red seal caught her eye. Most humans would have ignored it, assuming it was another bureaucratic scam, another tedious notification in a galaxy that seemed allergic to efficiency. Most humans, Kira reflected with a smirk, had a natural instinct for survival, and an uncanny knack for missing opportunities to make things interesting. She tore the envelope open with surgical precision. Inside was a single sheet of official parchment, stamped with the emblem of the Helix Directorate, an emblem that had made veterans of every species shiver for decades. Its design was deceptively simple: 3 interlocking rings of polished black metal, each inscribed with alien script so complex it could give a human a seizure just from looking at it. But the reputation behind it was simpler. The Helix Academy was where careers ended, where the weak were winnowed from the strong, and where mistakes weren't just fatal, they were permanent. "You're kidding me," she muttered under her breath, though her lips curled into the first real smile she'd had in days. The message was clear, concise, and terrifying. "Effective immediately. Lieutenant Kira Voss is assigned to the Helix Academy. Congratulations." Congratulations. That was the understatement of the century. Helix Academy didn't congratulate anyone. The cadets were broken, reassembled, and then either graduated or disposed of. Somewhere in the galaxy, an alien bureaucrat had probably just thought, "Oops. Human. Send anyway." And Kira, unlike anyone else, could smell opportunity. Her smile widened. Not a polite, restrained smile. A predator's smile. The kind that carried the weight of potential chaos, carnage, and long-lasting headaches for anyone who dared underestimate her. Because humans, she had learned, were very good at surviving mistakes, and even better at turning them into weaponized advantages. She slid the envelope into her jacket and stood, stretching in the cramped cabin of her shuttle. Around her, alien instructors and cadets moved with mechanical precision, their multi-limbed forms brushing against the walls as they practiced formations and drills. They didn't notice her. They never did. And that would be their first mistake. The boarding call came moments later. Kira moved toward the hatch, her boots clicking against the metallic deck, each step deliberate, each movement measured to provoke curiosity, or irritation, in anyone watching. The aliens, naturally, sniffed her approach like some exotic contaminant. One, a lithe, scaled creature with 6 glimmering eyes, hissed in recognition. "Human! You are in the wrong sector," it said, voice sharp enough to cut steel. "This is Helix. You..." "Errors happen," Kira interrupted smoothly, crossing her arms and leaning casually against the hatch. "Sometimes the wrong species shows up. Sometimes it's exactly the species you shouldn't underestimate." The creature froze. It had heard about humans, of course, their reckless bravery, their insane adaptability, but no one had actually seen one act like a predator. Humans were the theoretical threat, the kind of species that made alien generals lose sleep over what-ifs. Kira Voss was the what-if embodied. The shuttle descended through the Helix orbiting rings, each one more sinister than the last. They twisted and spun in impossible geometries, scaffolding platforms bristling with weaponry, gravitational manipulation arrays that could turn cadets into shredded puddles in seconds, and holographic war zones that simulated conflicts so realistic they left seasoned veterans trembling. Most humans would have looked at the descent and panicked. Kira laughed. Not audibly. Not yet. She reserved her laughter for the perfect moment, when it would sting the most. By the time the hatch opened, the other cadets were already wide-eyed, their species-specific exocets clanking nervously as they adjusted to the Academy's oppressive gravity fields. Kira stepped out, unfazed, her gait casual but purposeful, scanning every corner of the hellish training complex. The air smelled faintly of ionized metal and ozone, like every lethal lab she'd ever fought through combined into a single suffocating perfume. The Academy believed in intimidation. Kira believed in opportunity. She knew every drill, every obstacle, Every artificial death trap the Academy could conjure was designed to break them psychologically before it broke them physically. And humans, she knew, had an annoying habit of thriving precisely where others expected them to fail. The first drill was a simple combat scenario. The cadets were to navigate a simulated war zone, avoiding traps, neutralizing targets, and coordinating with their teams. The instructors watched from elevated platforms, their many eyes tracking every movement with obsessive precision. Kira, meanwhile, ignored the formation instructions entirely. She didn't follow their maps, their signals, or their expectations. She walked into the simulation like she owned it, every step a calculated flirtation with danger. An alien cadet lunged at her with a phase blade. Most humans would have flinched, parried, or yelled for backup. Kira did none of those things. She twisted her body in a movement no human, or alien, had practiced in that exact sequence, letting the cadet's momentum carry them into a wall, leaving them dazed but alive. Her laughter, soft and controlled, echoed in the chamber. The instructors snarled. That sound, amusement in the face of danger, was almost unheard of in the Academy. Almost fatal. The drill escalated quickly. Gravity fields fluctuated, plasma traps ignited, automated turrets began firing unpredictably. Cadets screamed, scrambled, or froze. Kira adapted. She danced through the chaos, turning hazards into shields, attacks into diversions, and mistakes into opportunities. When she finally emerged, standing unscathed amidst a field of trembling alien cadets and smoldering simulation wreckage, she tilted her head, her smile razor-sharp. Was that human instinct? A cadet wheezed, struggling to regain composure. Kira shrugged. Call it evolution. Call it insanity. Or call it a gift. Either way, you should be grateful I showed up. This might be the first time the Academy's actually learned something from a student. The instructors murmured among themselves, clicking and hissing in alarm. Humans weren't supposed to act like this. They weren't supposed to survive Helix training. And most certainly, they weren't supposed to teach the teachers a thing or two. By the end of the first week, Kira had already mapped every trap, memorized every firing sequence of the turrets, and subtly rewired the Academy's sensor arrays to give her tiny tactical advantages. The aliens panicked quietly. The administration, as usual, blamed clerical errors for any unexpected outcomes. And Kira? She smiled. Because mistakes, she had learned long ago, were just opportunities waiting to be exploited. Humans were the error the galaxy didn't calculate. And Kira Voss intended to make them regret every miscalculation, one strategically brutal step at a time. By the second week, the Academy had realized a simple truth: Kira Voss did not play by the rules. The instructors attempted to enforce discipline, but each attempt became a demonstration in futility. They had designed the training grounds for control, for predictability, for the slow, grinding extinction of their cadets' spirit. They had not accounted for a human who could turn their meticulously calculated chaos into a symphony of survival and retaliation. Kira treated each challenge as a puzzle, a test of alien arrogance and machine precision, and she always solved it on her own terms. The first exercise of the day was a zero-gravity combat simulation. Cadets were strapped into magnetic harnesses, armed with plasma rifles that could vaporize flesh in milliseconds. The arena rotated, its artificial gravity shifting every 30 seconds, while hidden turrets fired intermittent bursts of ionized projectiles. The alien instructors observed from above, eyes narrowing. She will fail, one hissed, clicking its mandibles in anticipation. She is human. She lacks the proper muscle density, the reflexive neural circuits to survive this. Kira, floating casually in the center of the chamber, spun her rifle lazily. Maybe you forgot, she said, voice calm, almost amused. Humans are good at surviving things you think they can't. The simulation started. Other cadets flailed, relying on pre-programmed instincts and formation protocols. Kira ignored all of it. She twisted, tumbled, and let her own motion guide her. When the first cadet lunged with a plasma blade, she sidestepped, using the cadet's momentum to flip them into a turret path, where automated defenses slowed but did not harm them, enough to terrify. By the time the chamber's rotation doubled, Kira had already neutralized 3 adversaries, disarmed 2 drones, and left a series of subtle traps that would later trip up anyone else foolish enough to follow her. She landed on a rotating wall as if it were solid ground, her boots scuffing the metallic surface in perfect timing with the shifting gravity. "You're not supposed to," one cadet gasped before tripping into a gravfield trap. "Expectations are optional," Kira replied, voice calm, almost conversational. She had begun collecting the stunned, confused cadets around her, reorganizing them into a squad. "Teamwork is nice. Brains are better. Instincts are best." The instructors were flabbergasted. In their calculations, a human should have been shredded within minutes. Kira had turned every lethal variable into a tactical advantage, every trap into a stepping stone. Later that afternoon, the Academy assigned her a mental endurance test. The simulation chamber filled with psychic stress projections, visions of death, failure, and cosmic insignificance meant to overwhelm the mind. Most cadets broke within moments, screaming as their own fears became tangible, physical threats. Kira stood perfectly still. The projections approached alien horrors, impossible geometry, whispers of doom. Kira tilted her head and laughed, low, ironic, almost musical. "You really thought I'd be scared?" she asked, speaking to the chamber as if it were alive. "This is cute." The projections faltered. Her calm was a weapon. Every alien design relied on fear to teach. Fear was how they controlled, how they filtered the strong from the weak. Kira weaponized her defiance. She stepped into the hallucinations, guided them, twisted their timing and effect, until the chamber itself became a training ground for her cadets. By the end, she walked out with 2 other cadets, who looked at her with awe and terror in equal measure. By week 3, Kira had achieved something unprecedented. The Academy no longer controlled her. She controlled the Academy. She rigged obstacle courses to become unpredictable, rerouted sensor grids to feed her tactical maps, and manipulated the simulators to create environments that tested the instructors more than the cadets. Every drill, every lesson, every test became an opportunity to demonstrate the deadly efficiency of human adaptability. The alien instructors panicked quietly. They whispered among themselves, recalculating every assumption they had ever held about humans. They spoke in clipped, precise tones meant to convey authority, but behind every hiss and click was an unspoken fear. "What species is this?" one muttered, its 6 eyes darting nervously as Kira walked past, humming softly. We calculated everything. She is unpredictable. Impossible. Impossible." Another agreed, but Kira didn't hear them. She had already moved on to the next challenge, the next chaos she could exploit, the next rules she could bend. Her reputation spread like wildfire through the Academy. Cadets whispered her name with reverence and dread. Voss. The human cadet who laughed in the face of death, who turned simulations into slaughterhouses for their expectations, who could make even the most precise alien calculation falter. They told themselves stories of her exploits, stories that grew with each retelling, how she had survived 3 plasma nets at once, how she had disarmed a fully automated drone squad with nothing but a metal rod and timing, how she had rewritten the Academy's own rules in less than 10 days. By the 4th week, Kira began testing the limits of the instructors themselves. In one audacious move, she hacked a drone swarm during a live tactical exercise, turning the swarm against the instructor's own command simulations. The aliens screamed, hissing in fury, as their perfect scenarios collapsed. "Disobedience!" one shouted. "Human error cannot be allowed!" Kira leaned against the wall, smudged with simulated soot and plasma residue, her grin wide and irreverent. "This isn't disobedience. This is education," she said. "You want realism? I give you reality." The Academy had a reputation for survival. Now it had a legend. A human legend who made highly trained, genetically optimized alien cadets look like children. The administration attempted damage control, blaming faulty equipment and clerical errors for the disasters Kira left in her wake. They did not realize that she had intentionally left traces, tactical fingerprints, strategic miscalculations for others to follow. She was rewriting the academy from the inside, leaving breadcrumbs of chaos that anyone who underestimated humans would follow straight into failure. Kira herself remained amused, detached, and eerily calm. She had come here expecting danger, expecting death, expecting the impossible. She found amusement, opportunity, and confirmation of a principle she already knew: humans thrived where others feared to tread, survived where others would perish, and adapted in ways that made even the most sophisticated alien intelligence nervous. By the end of the third week, she was no longer just a cadet. She was a force of nature. A single human in a lethal academy designed to destroy her species, who had turned every death trap into a lesson, every simulation into a battlefield, every expectation into a miscalculation. And she hadn't even begun to fight back. Because Kira Voss didn't just survive mistakes. She weaponized them. She didn't just bend rules, she broke them, reformed them, and left her enemies flailing in confusion and fear. And the Helix Academy, the jewel of the Empire's lethal instruction, was slowly, quietly, being rewritten by one human with a smile, a mind like a weapon, and the patience to make every alien regret their calculations. The live combat exercise was announced with typical Helix fanfare, flashing hollow banners, synthesized trumpets, and a booming broadcast across the training sectors. For the Academy, this was the pinnacle of testing: cadets versus rogue mercenaries in a fully simulated asteroid belt, under extreme environmental hazards. For Kira Voss, it was Thursday. Another day to remind the galaxy why humans were the wild cards it could never calculate. Her squad consisted of cadets who had survived only because she had guided them. They were nervous, jittery, terrified, but ready. Fear, she knew, could be turned into fuel. The instructors, sleek and multi-limbed, whispered threats and projections of doom. "You will fail. All humans fail in live simulations. All humans die," one hissed, eyes darting nervously as it reviewed the exercise parameters. Kira looked at them, her grin sharp enough to cut carbon steel. "Then you'll have a hell of a show," she said. Her voice carried through the comms channel, calm, amused, and utterly lethal in its casual disregard. The exercise began. Asteroids spun on precise, calculated orbits, gravity fields pulsing unpredictably, energy turrets activating with delayed sequences. The mercenary targets, bioengineered soldiers with reflexive neural implants, were formidable, fast, and deadly. Every simulation in Helix history had broken cadets in minutes. Kira had other plans. Instead of following the prescribed assault patterns, she ignored formation charts and standard maneuvers. She studied the mercenary AI's behavioral algorithms, analyzing patterns in microseconds, anticipating responses before the AI even processed the commands. Then she hacked the Academy's sensor network, rerouting turret targeting arrays, subtly shifting asteroid rotations, and turning environmental hazards into tactical advantages. Her cadets moved like shadows, slipping through chaos, making each asteroid a stepping stone and each turret a weapon for themselves rather than a threat. They struck and retreated with a precision that should have been impossible for human reflexes alone. By the first 5 minutes, 3 mercenary squads were neutralized before they realized they had been targeted. The instructors screamed, their predictions failing at an exponential rate. Kira paused briefly, scanning the belt as a slow, ironic smile spread across her face. The mercenaries, designed to adapt quickly, were trapped in a logic loop of human ingenuity. Their AI could anticipate standard human tactics, but Kira wasn't standard. When one bioengineered mercenary attempted to flank her squad from behind an asteroid, Kira used the asteroid's spin to propel herself in a perfect arc, vaulting over it and landing behind the AI unit. Her rifle's pulse sequence disabled its neural relay, leaving it dazed and useless. Other cadets followed her example, improvising attacks, exploiting minor flaws in mercenary programming she had deliberately left. The instructors were losing their minds. One hissed, its 6 eyes clicking in alarm. "This cannot be. This is impossible. She is unexpected." Kira finished for it, spinning and firing in a smooth, fluid motion that turned near misses into precise strikes. You sent one human to Helix. You got exactly the result you should have feared. As the exercise progressed, Kira escalated. She didn't just fight, she manipulated the battlefield itself. Grav fields were shifted mid-combat, asteroid orbits adjusted, and turrets redirected to create unpredictable fire corridors. The mercenaries were obliterated systematically, trapped in kill zones they couldn't comprehend. By the time the exercise was supposed to end, Kira had neutralized over 70% of all enemy units, and left the remaining units incapacitated in ways that would take hours for the Academy to reset. When the simulation concluded, the instructors demanded an explanation. Kira, standing atop a spinning asteroid fragment, rifle still humming with energy, looked down at them casually. You wanted realism, she said softly, almost conversationally. I gave you reality. The logs from the simulation were analyzed immediately. That's when the first shockwave rippled through the Empire. Kira hadn't just survived. She had penetrated every non-essential system in the Academy, sensor arrays, environmental controls, turret networks, and hacked them during the exercise. Every alien commander, diplomat, and military observer watching the Helix feed saw the same thing: a single human cadet outsmarting, outmaneuvering, and outgunning the Empire's most lethal soldiers. The Council panicked. Calculations failed. Predictions faltered. Entire fleets reconsidered strategy. We sent one human by mistake. A senior marshal muttered in disbelief. One human? This cannot be contained. This species, this is catastrophic. Kira's grin widened. That was exactly the point. But the exercise had more than tactical lessons. It had psychological consequences. Alien cadets who had been proud, confident, or arrogant were now trembling. Their belief in superiority, drilled into them since birth, shattered like glass. Kira had weaponized not just the battlefield, but their minds. A human had turned fear into a tool, and the galaxy would remember. After the debriefing, Kira addressed the Council personally, a rare privilege granted more out of desperation than protocol. The chamber was cold, metallic, suffused with alien scents that humans found vaguely oppressive. The Grand Marshal spoke, voice low and trembling. You were not meant to survive. Not like this. I'm a human, Kira interrupted, tilting her head, her grin sharp. We survive the impossible. We thrive in chaos. And we don't follow your rules. The Council erupted in outrage, hissing, screaming, and clicking simultaneously. Kira didn't flinch. She didn't even raise her voice. She had come here expecting threats, expecting death, expecting the impossible, and she had already exceeded it. What is it you want, human? The Marshal demanded. Kira's grin deepened. I want a place at the table, she said. Not to beg. Not to bargain. To remind every species in the sector that underestimating humans is ill-advised. You've designed an academy to kill us. I've turned it into a stage. You wanted a lesson? You just got a demonstration. Her words rippled through the Council chambers, broadcast simultaneously to allied and enemy fleets alike. Every military strategist, every diplomat, every fleet commander in the sector witnessed the same horrifying truth. A single human had dismantled the Empire's most lethal training exercise, turned their own weapons and systems against them, and walked away untouched, smiling. The galaxy began recalculating. Kira left the chamber without ceremony. Every eye followed her, every mind racing to find a countermeasure. She didn't care. Humans didn't wait for permission. Humans didn't worry about impossibilities. Humans made their own rules, and when they broke them, the consequences were terrifying. By the end of the day, Kira Voss had accomplished more than survival. She had turned Helix Academy into a testament to human ingenuity, audacity, and lethal creativity. She had demonstrated that one human, one single human, was capable of rewriting the tactical assumptions of an empire. And she hadn't even begun to fight. Because Kira Voss didn't just survive simulations. She weaponized them. She didn't merely bend rules, she shattered them, rewrote them, and left the galaxy scrambling in the aftermath. Helix Academy had thought it was teaching humans how to die. Kira Voss had taught them how to terrify. And the sector would never forget her name. By the time the council summoned her, Kira Voss was no longer a cadet. She was a force, a single human who had taken an institution built to break lives and transformed it into a stage for chaos, brilliance, and unapologetic survival. The chamber was cavernous, metallic, suffused with the cold scent of recycled air and alien tension. Every officer, diplomat, and marshal present was tense, their multi-limbed forms rigid, eyes flicking nervously toward the human who had undone decades of careful planning in under a month. "You were not meant to survive," the Grand Marshal hissed, its voice low, dripping with venom and disbelief. "You were not meant to succeed in Helix. And yet here you are, standing. Smiling." Kira finished, her grin razor-sharp, the kind of smile that promised trouble for anyone who miscalculated her species. "Yes," she said, voice calm, almost casual. "Smiling. Because this isn't failure. This is opportunity." The council erupted in simultaneous hisses, clicks, and panicked commands. They could not comprehend her. One human had undone simulations designed to destroy cadets, rigged environmental hazards, neutralized mercenary AI, and exposed every flaw in their predictive systems. Their entire empire's assumptions about humans, the calculated, assumed limits of her species, had been obliterated. "You cannot teach," the Grand Marshal barked. "You cannot manipulate Academy systems. You are." "I am human," Kira said softly, tilting her head. "We survive where you fail. We adapt where you stall. And yes, we laugh when you think you've won." It was true. Kira had weaponized everything: fear, expectation, rules, chaos. Helix Academy had thought it was training humans to die. She had trained them, instead, to fear the impossible. The Council's own elite instructors had become unwitting students in her lessons of unpredictability, improvisation, and human audacity. "What is it you want?" the Marshal demanded. Its voice cracked slightly, unheard by most species, but a human could tell. Kira's eyes gleamed. "I want a place at the table," she said, calm and deliberate. "Not to beg. Not to bargain. But to remind the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. You designed your simulations, your mercenaries, your entire academy with one assumption, that humans are predictable. You're wrong. You never have been right about us." The Council shifted uneasily. In their calculations, a single human could not have achieved what Kira had done. Their confidence, drilled over millennia, wavered. And that hesitation, brief, almost imperceptible, was all she needed. Kira walked through the chamber, boots clicking against the metallic floor. Every eye followed her, calculating, trying to anticipate her next move. None could. Humans were a variable they could not control, a species whose ingenuity bordered on terrifying. She stopped in the center, letting silence stretch. Then, deliberately, she tapped a control panel with one gloved finger. Holographic projections of the simulation appeared before the Council: asteroid belts, neutralized mercenaries, cadets executing maneuvers that violated every Academy protocol. Every Council member saw it: the proof, the spectacle, the undeniable truth. "This is not a fluke," she said. "This is not luck. This is human ingenuity. One human can turn your perfect simulations into a demonstration of unpredictability, resourcefulness, and raw efficiency. You thought you sent me as a mistake. I am your best lesson." One marshal hissed, voice trembling. "You've humiliated us. This human has undone decades of preparation. How do we counter this?" Kira smiled. "You don't. You can't. And that's exactly the point. The galaxy has underestimated humans for centuries. You've assumed we will behave like you, think like you, follow your rules. We don't. And anyone who tries to control us fails spectacularly." The chamber went silent. Even the most stoic diplomats could not mask their unease. The Helix Academy, their pride, their crown jewel, had been reduced to a stage for one human's brilliance. A single being, from a species they had always considered expendable, had rewritten the rules. Kira turned toward the exit. "I didn't come here to fight you," she said over her shoulder. "I came to teach. But remember this, one human can change the outcome of what an entire empire thought impossible. And there are billions more where I came from." As she left, the council scrambled to reassess, sending hasty calculations, warnings, and protocols across the sector. Every fleet commander, every diplomat, every military tactician now had the same urgent note on their screens: humans are unpredictable. Do not underestimate them. Outside the chamber, Kira paused, looking back one final time. The fear, the calculation, the awe in their eyes, it was intoxicating. She didn't revel in cruelty. She reveled in clarity. Humans were often dismissed, miscalculated, and underestimated. And humans, when pushed, when cornered, when treated as an error, could become something far beyond expectation. The galaxy had just learned a lesson in humility. Weeks later, reports from Helix Academy confirmed it. Cadets performed differently under human supervision, instructors adjusted protocols, and the entire system underwent a subtle but irreversible change. Kira's methods, her improvisations, her defiance, they had left permanent fingerprints on an empire that believed it could control life itself. Somewhere across the sector, alien generals whispered her name in fear. The human cadet. Voss. She survived. She adapted. She is impossible. And that, Kira thought as she boarded her next transport, sipping bitter coffee and humming softly, was the perfect reward. Humanity had been underestimated, yes. Misjudged, yes. But humans, resilient, ingenious, and gloriously reckless, were now a problem no empire could ignore. The galaxy had met one human. It had survived, thrived, and laughed in their face. The galaxy would meet many more. Because humans did not apologize for survival. Humans did not follow rules. Humans, 1 billion, took the impossible and made it inevitable. Kira Voss had arrived. And for the Helix Empire, for every species that underestimated humanity, the only certainty was that the next mistake could be fatal. The galaxy didn't know it yet. But it would. And Kira? She smiled, the predator who had been sent by mistake, already thinking about the next impossible challenge, the next error, that the universe had made by sending a human.